So let's talk about the crank for a second. This engine that we used as a core was running fine. Some oil leaks, ran smooth. We didn't compression test it, but the motor felt even on all cylinders. And we took the crank out, and we see that you can't feel anything on the bearing surfaces, right? And I mic'd these out, and they're standard, and they're not worn at the max on standard, but I'll have to hit that with some Scotch-Brite. And my point is that the bores were nice. Just needed a slight cleanup hone. This stuff is really durable. You know, if you take good care of it and you make sure the tune's right and service it, these things are very robust. And a lot of the clearances that we see from the factory are already built for like a high output turbo car. So it really doesn't take a whole lot to make yourself an engine for this thing really strong. So basically, we're going to have an engine that uses, these nice SRM rods, and we're actually going to use some ARP bolts. The reason we're using ARP bolts is I would have used factory ones, but see, these are two different length, right? So these bolts would have been, I don't know the exact price, well north of $200 for a full set. But we were able to acquire a set of ARP bolts from 034 Motorsports, 034 Motorsports, for equivalent price. So we went with that. So I had pointed out before the little bit of rust on the main. See that? We didn't have the crank in a container or with any enough anti-rust stuff while we were storing this. So I just want to show you how I get the rust off. So I use Scotch-Brite, a little oil on it, and then we just kind of do that. Let's see what it looks like now. And you keep going until all the rust is gone and you're happy with the finish. If it starts getting scratched, you need to have it resurfaced, but we're going to be able to salvage this and make everything happy. So the more I look at this crank, the more interesting things I kind of see. So if you look in here at the radius right there, and over there, right there, right? And then the balancing for the bob weights, I took out material here and here. Look at all that. Pretty interesting. All right, so in my crazy hyperfocus, we skipped a couple of steps. So we have the crank in now. All the bearing clearances have been checked with Plastigauge. And it was hard to actually get the dimensions on the crank, but the machine work on the mains, I mean, it was just dead nuts, factory, close to new spec. The rods were the same dimension as well after digging up the information. And this block uses, if you're an Audi nerd, you're going to know that there's two different style blocks with two different style bolts. So this block has the uneven length. Long bolt would go here, short bolt will go here. So we have these all in and matched up and torqued. Now, one of the satisfying things is once you get to this point, you get to do the spinny test. So now this is lubed with a heavy assembly lube, so it doesn't just fly past, but you can just kind of see just how nicely it just moves. There is restriction, but it just feels like it's moving through like a thick syrup without any actual friction or anything like that. It's just so satisfying. All right, so now we're going to start on the rods and pistons now, which means that we're going to assemble the pistons with the rings right now, and then we're going to do the rods onto the pistons. And we know the orientation, again, after digging this stuff up, that the bearing tangs face the center line of the block. So the bearing tang for this bank goes towards the middle. And the bearing tang for this side, it goes towards the middle. And that's important because you can see the oil squirters down there are on one side on the inside, and the pistons have a relief right here. See that? And then look at the other side. All right. No relief. Yes, relief. So this piston